Oil prices surged to near $100 per barrel on Thursday, following the announcement of a fragile ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran. The uncertainty stems from ongoing conflicts in Lebanon and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz by Iran after Israeli strikes. The S&P 500 futures dropped slightly, reflecting concerns about geopolitical stability affecting global energy supplies. Brent crude rose to $98.70 per barrel, a 4.1% increase over the previous day's closing price. The U.S. President Donald Trump announced a 2-week ceasefire on Tuesday. However, subsequent Israeli strikes in Lebanon have cast doubt on its durability. Financial markets are highly sensitive to geopolitical developments that could impact energy supplies and global stability. Iran's closure of the Strait of Hormuz, a critical transportation route for oil, further fueled fears about supply disruptions. Talks aimed at establishing permanent peace between conflicting parties will commence this weekend in Pakistan, with Vice President J.D. Vance heading the U.S. delegation. The prospects for long-term resolution remain uncertain as tensions persist and conflict continues to escalate in the region. The immediate significance lies in the potential for continued market volatility until clearer terms of peace can be established, ensuring stability in global energy markets. President Donald Trump renewed his criticism of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization during a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte at the White House on Wednesday. Trump alleged that NATO failed to support the United States during recent conflicts, including those involving Iran. The president suggested the U.S. may reconsider its commitment to the alliance, questioning its value and reliability. Since regaining office, Trump's relationship with NATO has grown increasingly strained, particularly over disputes in the ongoing Iran conflict. Congress passed legislation in 2023 preventing any U.S. president from unilaterally withdrawing from NATO without approval from other member countries. The criticism raises questions about the future of U.S. and NATO relations and the broader commitment to collective defense within the alliance. It remains unclear whether Trump will challenge this legislative restriction or seek to work through diplomatic channels to address his concerns with NATO allies. Israeli military strikes hit central Beirut Wednesday, killing at least 182 people and wounding hundreds. The attacks came hours after a ceasefire was announced between the U.S. and Iran, but were not covered by that truce. The strikes targeted multiple locations across Lebanon, including southern areas and the eastern Bekaa Valley. Israel claimed to have hit over 100 Hezbollah targets in just 10 minutes. Lebanese officials are calling for negotiations to end hostilities. The Minister of Social Affairs stated the attacks represented dangerous escalation and cited heavy civilian casualties, particularly among internally displaced persons sheltered in Beirut, with more than 5,873 wounded since the outbreak of war on March 2. These strikes may further complicate regional diplomatic efforts aimed at securing lasting peace. Lebanon's prime minister accused Israel of disregarding international law and its actions against civilians. The next steps include a potential push for negotiations to address ongoing tensions and prevent further civilian casualties. A tentative ceasefire in the ongoing conflict between Iran and its allies against Israel and the U.S. is under strain due to continued Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon and disputes over control of the strategic Strait of Hormuz. At least 203 people were killed Wednesday in Israeli strikes on Beirut. This marks one of the deadliest days since the war began in February. Both sides claim compliance with their own interpretations of the ceasefire agreement. This leads to disagreements about whether Israel's actions violate the terms set forth. Oil prices have spiked to around $98 per barrel as uncertainty persists over the reopening of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway that has been largely closed since the start of the conflict. This closure has significant implications for global oil markets and international maritime law, with debates ongoing about Iran's right to charge ships using the strait. The fate of Iran's enriched uranium stockpile remains unresolved, pending further negotiations expected this weekend in Islamabad. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is scheduled to lead a delegation for talks starting Saturday, aiming to address issues related to Iran's nuclear program and regional proxies like Hezbollah. with tensions high and critical discussions approaching. The immediate significance lies in whether upcoming negotiations can stabilize the ceasefire or if current disputes will escalate further into renewed conflict. The Artemis Roman 2 crew is scheduled to return to Earth after a historic mission around the Moon. Expected to splash down off the coast of San Diego by Friday evening USEDT, early Saturday morning BST. President Donald Trump congratulated the team on setting a new human travel record during their flyby. Commander Reid Wiseman and astronauts Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen shared reflections from their journey. They observed areas of the lunar surface previously unseen by humans, breaking the Apollo-era distance record set in 1970. Wiseman named a lunar crater after his late wife, Carol, during moments of profound solitude experienced by the crew when they lost contact with Earth for about 40 minutes. As the spacecraft prepares to return home, the astronauts emphasized the significance of their mission and expressed eagerness to share more data and stories from space. They noted that re-entry and splashdown will test critical systems necessary for future missions in NASA's Artemis program aimed at long-term lunar exploration and eventual human presence on the Moon. Crew is expected to face several days of checks before the final descent. This marks a historic milestone in space travel and scientific research. A jury in Hawaii has found Gerhard Koenig, a 47-year-old anesthesiologist, guilty of attempted manslaughter for attacking his wife during their birthday hike last year. The incident occurred on the Polypuka Trail in Oahu. Koenig is facing up to 20 years in prison and will be sentenced on August 13th. The jury deliberated for over 8 hours before reaching a verdict, sparing him more serious charges like attempted murder. During the trial, both spouses testified with conflicting accounts of what happened during their hike in March 2025. Ariel Koenig described how her husband pushed her near the edge of a cliff and tried to stab her with a syringe while beating her with a rock. She stated she had been working on salvaging their marriage after discovering infidelity. However, believed her husband wanted to harm her severely or kill her during the attack. Legal experts anticipate an appeal from Koenig's legal team given the jury's decision on lesser charges instead of attempted murder. The case has garnered significant attention due to its nature and the family violence involved. The next step is sentencing for Gerhard Koenig, with his fate hanging in balance as he faces a lengthy prison term if convicted to the maximum sentence.